We might have waited 158 days for Formula E to return, but some things didn't change as Antonio Felix da Costa was a dominant double winner in Berlin. On this episode of Behind the Race, we'll get under the skin of how da Costa and the team overcame the unpredictability that we usually see in Formula E to control proceedings. I'm your host, Matt Q, and I'm joined by Michela Cerruti from Italy to analyse where
Hello.
it all... How are you? Sorry, how are you? How are you doing?
Yeah, very well. And you?
Good. Yeah, not too bad, thank you. It was a late night last night covering Formula E, but it's good to have the championship back.
Yes, yes. It was a long wait, wasn't it?
A long wait. 5 months. 5 months of no racing while Formula One came back. But well, first off, did you think they were good races? Because we had two very, very dominant wins for Antonio Felix da Costa, and the second race didn't really come alive until the second half. It was not the usual sort of crash fest, slipstreaming affair that maybe we've come to expect from Formula E in recent seasons.
I think there were two very good races to watch. I have to say that the choice of taking Berlin racetrack inside the airport as a place where to do all the 6 events was a very good choice because the track is very wide, which is something that you usually don't see in city tracks. So this allows drivers, they love it, I know that, because they can overtake. There are chances of good fights, which we have seen actually during these 2 races in Berlin. That's true that da Costa dominated all the weekend. I like him as a driver a lot, and I think that once that he has found the very right place to be, he's now able to deliver all the performance that he's able of. But despite that, I think that behind him there were very good fights and many drivers like swapping places. So it was exciting. And you have the advantage also there that you can change the layout. So it's basically like having like 3-4 different racetracks. And once that you do a lap in a way, and you do it like the opposite way, is something completely different. So apex, braking points, the speed inside the corner is something completely different for the drivers.
Yeah, it was good to see that on the reverse circuit. And the interesting thing is, as you say, we're moving from the reverse circuit to a normal circuit to a conventional circuit. And drivers were saying that although they've done loads of preparation in the sim to prepare, by the time they get to the last circuit, they'll have forgotten what it is because they've been so intensely focused on these first 4 races. So, but that is for a later episode. For now, we'll concentrate on da Costa's domination, who won by 4 seconds in the first race, 3 seconds in the second race. And like you say, it was close behind for his rivals, but in a way, I feel that they let da Costa win because in the first race, we had Andre Lotterer miss his attack mood boost for an extra 35 kilowatts. And from that on, it really sort of fell into the hands of DS Teechetah for da Costa and for Verne in second place. And in the second race, we had something similar where Buemi did activate his attack boost, but then there was 2 full course yellows. So he spent most of it having to do a speed limit and couldn't really close the gap. What did you make of it?
Yes, I think that he was also kind of lucky from a certain point of view because there were a lot of fights behind him. It was his dominance was anyway clear even from qualifying, because to be like 4/10 quicker than anyone else on the same racetrack, I think is something very impressive. Also because the racetrack is anyway short, because 106 is a short track, so the performance was anyway impressive. But yes, you're right, because in both races there were a lot of moves from the other drivers. This attack mode, I think, that made everyone confused. At a certain point, it was a little bit difficult to understand whether they took it or not. And in the second race, so race 7, something. What happened to Buemi was pretty unlucky, I have to say. This attack mode can be something that can be very useful. I have to say that for da Costa was easy to use it. He just chose to use it to take even more advantage, to be sure. But on the other side, all the competitors and the contenders for the title were all out of the point zone. So it was an easy job, but based on a dominant performance, and he felt extremely comfortable there, and he's just following a tendency that started before the lockdown, and I think he would deserve to win this title. I mean, he's almost there.
Like you say, Michela, it was a two race run where his title rivals almost let us down, because we're not getting the sort of championship fight we were promised. You know, Mitch Evans, who came into the Berlin race, is only 11 points behind DaCosta. He's now down to 4. DaCosta is 68 points clear. I was doing some late maths last night. He needs 4 third places now. That's it to win the title. And although that is, you know, it's not an easy feat by any means to achieve, given he's just won 3 races back to back, you'd expect DaCosta to go and win the title. And let's analyse, I think, a bit more what happened to his rivals. And let's start with the one perhaps a bit closest to home, and that was Jean-Eric Vergne, who, for me, we had a return to his first season in Formula E where he was maybe a bit sulky, a bit dejected. He was frustrated by DaCosta going so fast in the first race as they're running 1-2, which meant he had to use up his energy, also wore out his rear tyres. And what was interesting for me is that he was still complaining about that just as we were on the grid for race 2. He didn't let it go. He didn't reset. He was still racing with this sort of wound up mentality.
Well, yes, let's remember that he's the only one who has won 2 titles in Formula E. He was basically a winning driver since the beginning, but yes, the first season was not that easy for him. I think he is feeling the pressure a lot. It's now too late for him to be contender for the championship, but it's not easy to start with a new teammate when you are the absolute winner of the series, and you have someone, let's say that, with BMW, DaCosta had some results, but it was never so efficient in his performance. So probably even Vergne was surprised and felt the pressure even more, because suddenly DaCosta arrived. They have the same car, because when you know your first competitor is your teammate, because overall in Formula E the car is that one. I mean, there is not so much difference also between car and car, different teams. So it's something very difficult to accept. And the reasons why he was forced behind and dropped places in this race is clearly because of the pressure. He had problems, but he was not like victim of contacts and so on. He used more energy, he used more tires, which is clear because he was nervous, and always in fights, because I have to say that the drivers also behind, they were really competitive and really aggressive. So of course, when you also have to battle, it's much more difficult to keep your tire good and to save energy. From that point of view, DaCosta had an advantage, but starting from an existing advantage by his own performance.
Yeah, I think that's something maybe a lot of us didn't really take into account, because all the teams I spoke to were saying, we're coming into Berlin, we've looked at all the data, so we're going to make a software development, we're going to be faster. And they all did that, but so did DS Teechetah. I mean, DaCosta was 4 tenths up in qualifying with a really, really special lap. And that brings us on, I think, to Jaguar, who in Marrakesh, in Santiago, they showed they had the race pace. They were probably the second fastest car. In Berlin, they were nowhere. Not only did they qualify badly, and I'm thinking about Mitch Evans in particular here as a championship rival, not only were they bad in qualifying, but they didn't have this progression in the races that we've seen time and time again. That is a team that, it's not as if everyone else has outdeveloped them over the break. They've actually gone backwards, I think.
Yes, this is something that you can see from the results. It's a real pity, because it's true that Mitch Evans was also a bit unlucky with the contacts with Gunther in the first race, and for sure he couldn't be so efficient also in qualifying for the second race. But yes, there was a clear additional value on the Teechetahs this weekend, something that you can see more on DaCosta. But as I said, he could be for sure much better in driving. He felt a special feeling these 2 days, but to be 4 tenths quicker than other cars on such a short track, that means that you really have a good car. On the other side, that car must also adapt to your driving style, and your driving style must adapt to that car. So I think that they just found the best combination, the best possible combination, driver and car, Teechetah and the COSTA. I'm saying so. All the others were just chasing. So yes, Jaguar, who was having maybe something more in the past races, was like more included in the big group in this situation. But so that was Verne somehow. So I think that Teechetah found really something special, especially with the Costa.
Yeah, I think Sebastian Buemi summed it up quite well after finishing second in race 2. He said, I won Formula E 1.5. And I think that's about right, that there's a championship where Da Costa is on his own at the front, and then there's everyone else in these really good, really intense, really close battles for second place. But it is second place now. And that does make the title fight interesting. We've got Stoffel Van Dorn, Lucas de Grassi level on points, but just streaking ahead is Da Costa. As we look forward to the next 2 races in a couple of days, we're back on a normal Berlin circuit. Is there any reason at all to expect the order to change? You know, there's teams aren't going to be able to go back to the garages and look at the data. Drivers aren't going to be able to go on holiday and spend time with their family and find a better headspace or whatever. Yeah, is there any reason things should be any different for these final races?
Well, I think that we can just think a little bit for a moment about F1 racing back-to-back on the same racetrack. So we have an example of that, but it's also easy to think because, as you said, you do not have that much time to rethink about everything, to reset, because for someone, that's the real necessity, is to reset and start with a completely new, maybe setup, not just a car setup, but even a mind setup, like Verne or someone like Di Grassi or Evans, who could just lose motivation after these 2 first events in Berlin. So on the other side, if you take it as an opportunity with your team, of course, there is the chance. It's like having a second chance. Usually when you race on a track, you have the race that season, you have to give everything in those 2-3 days. And then once it is finished, that you just think about the following year or the following season. In this case, you have the chance to go back stronger. You know, many drivers, every time they say, I will come back stronger. But in this case, I think it can be very true, because you really have the chance to go back to same place and same drivers, same everything, and just do better. I think that the only one who could do worse is Da Costa, but he gained so much confidence, I can imagine, in these 2 days, that anyway he will still be the man to beat.
I quite agree. In terms of spectacle or fans watching from home, not that you want to jinx it, but I suppose what we're looking for is one lock-up in qualifying or something that ruins his lap and puts him down in the grid. And that would almost help him as a champion, I think, because then you not only show how he can manage a race and lead from the front, but it'd be great to watch him in that car sort of tearing through from the back of the grid and pulling off some really good overtakes. That's something I would like to see.
Yes, me too, of course. But I have to say that Formula E could give a great spectacle from that point of view, because we could always see that there are some unpredictable things, and even like the attack mode. If you think about race 1, Da Costa took a very big risk because he couldn't get straight away the attack mode. He made a mistake doing that, and his teammate was right close behind him to steal the first position. Then he was superior again. But anyway, I think that Formula E can give the chance every race of something unpredictable to happen. And it's also, it can be dangerous to be so sure about your own performance, because that can easily make you lose the focus. And when you race on city tracks, it's such a close racing, because now the race is short. You do not have that pit stop that you had before that could be helpful to reset and start a new part of the race. This time you need to be focused all the time, and on city tracks it's really like a moment to lose focus and go into the wall, make a mistake, which is something happening every race. So I think that we cannot really predict exactly what will happen, but yes, we can predict that it will still be quick for sure.
Well, certainly from the last 2 races, it's almost been one of those moments where, although there isn't the race at the front that you might have hoped for, sometimes it's just great to sit back and watch a really good driver in a really good car as they find a sort of harmony, and maybe we will get that unpredictability, and maybe things will turn on its head. But I think for now we're pretty much in agreement that COSTA is the only person to beat right now.
Yes, that's for sure. But you have like young guns behind him. Think about De Vries, for example. I'm really curious to see if he will manage to grab the podium or to grab maybe even the victory, because I think that he was really quick in this weekend. He's a really young, quick guy with a lot of experience, and he misses just a little bit to be there. He misses a bit of experience compared to other drivers in Formula E, but he is someone who is making me curious, and I think that in the last Berlin, in the next Berlin races, he could give something more, because you just need, sometimes you see that he's almost there. Suddenly you lose the focus on him, and and he arrives. So I think that anyway, behind the COSTA, there are interesting drivers to give a look at.
Yeah, I think that Mercedes, its powertrains developed by the HBP site in Brixworth, which is what's given Mercedes in Formula One all this domination. So you'd expect them to be on the money. And De Vries, like you say, some of his defensive moves, his blocking, it's been hugely exciting to watch. Thank you very much, Michela, for running through the first two Berlin races with me. A lot of talking points, but perhaps they're all rather focused around the top driver and the top team. So when we come back after the next two races in Berlin, we analyse it all over again. Let's hope we've got something else to talk about, something to keep it interesting and potentially take the title down to the final races in Berlin.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much.